In a world where it seems totally normal to listen to a podcast about the Toronto Argonauts, it's the X's and Argos podcast.
Welcome to the X's and Argos post-game reaction podcast brought to you by Funny Bone Broth. My name is Ben Grant, joined as always by JB. What a weird game that was. The Toronto Argonauts victorious 17-16 over the visiting Hamilton Ticats. JB, that was a crazy game. Not a good game, but a crazy one.
No, I mean, I thought both teams would score more, but I think that the Argos largely deserved to win the game, and so I was happy to see that and thought that they would. But a very, very odd game. I thought really a game of two halves.
I predicted a 1-point Argos win with Hamilton coming flying back at the end, but I did not picture it happening the way that it happened. It was a game where like Toronto could have had easily into the 30s in terms of points. They left so many points just hanging out there. Hamilton maxed out. Like the 16 points Hamilton got was pretty much all they deserved to get. But yeah, Toronto just seemed to throw away opportunities. There were so many occasions where there should have been, at the very least, a field goal, if not a touchdown, and they couldn't cash it in. Let's talk about some of the big moments in the game. So in the first half, I thought there were two things that really stood out to me. One, I was really concerned about Josh Haggerty at free safety, and the other one was I was really impressed with the offensive line's run blocking, and those were the sort of the two stories of the first half for me. Let's maybe start with those things. So Josh Haggerty was in at free safety this week for Cresden Butler, who's hurt. And there was some concern coming in. We expressed that in our preview because last week we saw a touchdown given up because Haggerty was sort of stationary in the center of the field. And early in the first half, there were a couple of occasions where there were clearly problems. Not only on the touchdown pass, Hamilton's first touchdown, where it looked like they were, I would have to look back and go over the film, but they were either in cover 3 or cover 1. I'm not sure, not having seen the replays or anything yet. But Haggerty was stationary in the middle of the field. He didn't drift towards that seam, and he was beat for a touchdown. But there were a few other opportunities that Hamilton missed where they didn't even see that guys going up the seam had basically beaten Haggerty. That first half was filled with errors on his part. How do they go about fixing this, JB?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to bang on the rookie, but we both felt like it was too much. He's not ready to be a starting safety in the CFL, and that was apparent. It's a good question in terms of Butler. I don't know if you can continue to go. I think you have to. Like if Butler is going to be out for a significant amount of time, I think you're going to have to go make a trade. I don't think that you can have a player who's still learning the game at a professional level out there that much, because he gave up the first touchdown. He almost gave up a touchdown at the end of the half. You just can't, I mean, that's a major problem. You cannot have a player out there who is, leaking oil. So hopefully Butler's back and Haggerty can continue to learn. But if Butler's out for a significant time, I think they need to look at a trade, maybe to Winnipeg. I hear they have a free safety who might be available.
Don't even start on Alden Darby trade.
Bring him home.
I would love that, but that's I'm not even I can't even talk about that. That's not a subject I want to get into. So with Haggerty, I counted from the press box. I saw 4 different occasions where there were seams that he didn't get to, where he didn't move over. They only cashed in on one of those. 2, it looked like the quarterback didn't see, and then 1 they just were unable to connect on. Now, a few things on Haggerty. So first of all, to put some context here, remember that Haggerty's not only a rookie, he's a 6th round pick. So it's not someone that you were even thinking about for this year. We talked before about how the Argos, knew that there was a possibility of him going back to school, et cetera, et cetera. And to put it into more context, their 1st round draft pick from 2020 and their first round draft pick and first overall pick from 2019 are still working their way into the lineup. They're still just trying to get in there, finally dressing and looking at some playing time. And so to expect a rookie who was drafted in the 6th round this year to come in and start and not make mistakes is, it's just not going to happen.
I mean,
now
it'd be fine if he was on offense, but on defense, we play with live ammo.
Yeah, it is. It's true though. Like, you make fun of offensive players quite a lot, as I make fun of defensive players and the whole point of defense. But you're right though. Like the cost, bringing a rookie in on offense, generally, unless we're talking about quarterback, it generally isn't game changing. It doesn't cost you anything. You can go away from them. You can find ways to hide that. On defense, it's much harder to do, and we saw that the Argos were trying to hide Haggerty early in the game. There was a lot of cover 3. They played some rolling 2, and they were just trying to sort of, keep him out of having to make those crucial decisions where he's back there playing free. And eventually Hamilton sort of found a way to, have this catch up to him. Now, the good news is that he was significantly better in the second half. The second sack from Eli Harold was Josh Haggerty. On that play, Dan Evans had another seam. It was cover 3. He was looking there. He expected it to be open like it had been in the first half, but Haggerty came flying over, shut it down. Evans had to keep the ball. He ended up getting sacked by Eli Harold. So there was some significant improvement from Haggerty from first half to second half, but it's got to continue, or there has to be a move, like you said, because it's so much to expect. Let's talk about the run blocking from Nicastro and Allen, and really the game that Nicastro played. It wasn't perfect, but seeing as he's stepping into center, I was really pleased with what I saw from him today. Again, if you're just sort of grading, play by play, I don't think this game is going to end up standing out as like, wow, what a performance. But for his first full game at center, you could see why the Argos drafted him in the first round, why they sort of projected him as being the center of the future, because I thought he played great.
Yeah, he was, I've hats off to him. I know, we were on him a little bit from Labor Day. I thought he looked fantastic at center, for a guy who hasn't had a lot of time at center. He looked very capable, and really that's all you're asking for from your line. So I was really impressed. I thought he run blocked really well. I thought he picked up blitzes. I thought it was a really solid game from him.
Yeah, I didn't really see many mental mistakes, and his run blocking was, I think when I go to grade this, I think it's going to end up being the best on the team. Allen did pretty well with run blocking too, but Nicastro on those first few plays where John White really got rolling in that first quarter, a lot of that was Nicastro. On a bunch of those plays, it started with a double team, and then he'd climb up to the linebacker, and his timing was great. He dominated the blocks, and the holes were massive for John White to run through. And like I said, most of that is a credit to Nicastro. So that was a really nice thing to see, especially from a player that, we've sort of given him a hard time because he hasn't had great games to this point. But not only was it great to see him have a really good game, but at center as well. Maybe that means when Philip Blake comes back, maybe we'll see Nicastro stay at center and Blake can finally play the position he's best at left guard. So we'll see when we got to see how Philip Blake's health is. In terms of one of the big plays of the first half, that first touchdown was actually set up on a penalty that DJ Foster wheel. I know you texted me right away as soon as that play happened, and you're like, I'm counting that as a reception to DJ Foster.
Yeah,
that was a pretty big play. It was a really nice play call, I thought. And it was something that Coach Dimwitty played off of last week. We've seen Foster run the flat route and those swing routes so many times. And then to have him turn it upfield into that wheel, caught the defender off guard. He was 100% interfered with. And that, was a good challenge, obviously. And that put the ball at the one and set up that touchdown. But, Foster's game was fantastic today.
Yeah, I had hoped that he would be a bigger part. He certainly was. Out of the backfield, the two-back set worked really well. I'd love to see out of that 2-back set him getting some more running plays. But I thought that that Foster again was a game changer, and they win when they go to him. So I want to see him keep being a central part of the offense.
It was interesting that he didn't really get many carries in the first half. He did in the second half. He got a few, but that was when they were sort of keying on run because the Argos were in their sort of, time-killing 4-minute offense. And so everyone was keying on the run game, and that's when Foster got the majority of his carries. And interestingly enough, that touchdown run, which really did look like a touchdown run, technically counts as a touchdown pass for Nick Arbuckle because it was sort of a shovel. Although really headsy play and just a terrific coordination from Arbuckle. The timing wasn't quite right on that play, and Arbuckle never even caught the ball. That snap comes high, and Foster is going flying by him on that. He basically volleys it to Foster, and then Foster does the rest. And it was such an amazing piece of work.
It a couple of years ago, I can't remember who really kind of started it, but basically, with jets becoming more popular, like jet sweeps, teams discovered that, like one of the tricky parts about the jet sweep is the handoff. You got this guy coming screaming by, and, if you hand it off poorly, you get a fumble. And somebody realized that if you just kind of toss the ball in the air, if he fumbles it, it's a drop pass. So it's kind of a loophole in football that they haven't closed. And, it doesn't really affect stats, but it is an interesting strategic move by the offense because it basically makes it no worry. Like, if the jet doesn't work, then, just reset. You don't have to worry about a fumble.
It does affect prop bets because that was a 40-yard touchdown pass for Arbuckle. So I'm sure there were a few people who had the under on Arbuckle's passing yards. That play made the difference. And they were probably like, when that 40-yard touchdown run turned into a 40-yard touchdown pass.
I feel like maybe the Patriots were the first team to discover that, but I might be wrong.
Well, I can imagine that you would definitely think that. I actually do think that is the case. I think the first time I ever saw that was the Patriots doing that, and then everyone, picked it up and they realized, like, yeah, that makes total sense. It was interesting to note that after the game, Coach Dinwiddie said that play was actually installed for last week. They were planning on running that play last week, and they just never got the right opportunity to. And so it was one of those, it wasn't one that they had, put in this week trying to show Hamilton something they hadn't seen yet. It was just left over that they, hadn't had a chance to use. And I thought with that, the motion that they had going on there was just a really nicely designed play. Like if you're looking for ways to get Foster out on the outside, what a great play design that was. The other interesting thing that stood out to me in the first half and then became sort of a thing in the second half was the use of Chandler Worthy. So in the first half, there was a corner route that would have gone for a touchdown had Arbuckle not been under tremendous pressure. There were two free rushers that came through. Worthy was running a corner. He was in man coverage. His defender got lost and Worthy was all alone. But I don't know how much the pressure affected the throw, but Arbuckle was nowhere near completing it. And I actually think it was more that Arbuckle thought he was going to cut that a bit fatter, a bit more like an out than a corner, and Worthy cut it really skinny. And so the ball ended up being nowhere close. And that could have been a huge difference. If they connect on that, if Arbuckle just even has a second to plant his feet, that's an easy touchdown pass, and suddenly it's 21-0 at that point. So that could have been a huge play. And then in the second half, Chandler Worthy on that post, JB, it went off his fingertips. And you think about all the things that have to go right and wrong on that play. You have a quarterback under a tremendous amount of pressure, throwing off his back foot about 60 yards downfield to this guy that runs like a 4.3, and it goes off his fingertips, and that would have been a touchdown too. What did you see on that play?
Yeah, I mean, that was really frustrating because finally Arbuckle opens up on a deep pass, which we've been sort of calling for. And Worthy, on when you watch the replay, he ran the first 10 yards at 75% because he clearly felt like this was just a route, that he wasn't getting the ball. and then realized he was going to get the ball, and he's fast. But, those extra 2 yards cost them a touchdown and an easy win. I mean, it could have been a game-losing mistake by Worthy, which, for a guy who is not a regular starter, you can't be out there running routes at not 100% because you don't think you're going to get the ball. You gotta make that catch. That's unworthy. He blew that play because he didn't run full out. I don't know whether he didn't respect Arbuckle's arm or he just felt he wasn't going to get the ball. But I was really disappointed in that. That's no good.
Now, something I learned in the press conference about that play was that they had never had a chance to actually run it. So that was installed this week. But because they only had 2 practices this week and both were basically walkthroughs and, basically an hour-long walkthrough, they didn't have a chance to run everything that they installed. And so that was a play that they actually never had repped. And to be fair to Worthy, there are sometimes, there's so many different ways to run every route. And sometimes change of direction is what you're thinking about. And if you've never run it before, you never have the chance to sort of say, the quarterback come and say, hey, how come you weren't where I thought you'd be? And the receiver saying, well, I was kind of going into it looking like I'm stock blocking and then I'm going to take off on the post. And they never had a chance to have any of these conversations. And
no, you're right. The timing comes from practice. That's a fair defense. But
it is making excuses, but I think it's a pretty good excuse this week. And, you also consider how many moving parts there have been for Arbuckle. He's had so many different receivers in and out. Ricky Collins Jr. was out. Braverman is out now. Collins Jr. is back in. He's got Joan Brescison out, who he worked with, all camp in the first couple of games. And it's just a constant revolving door at receiver. And, for him to then try and run plays that they haven't even repped, and he's trying to think of, wait a second, who's where? And there's so few guys with like that kind of speed. Well, there's no one else with that kind of speed. Just the fact that he was that close is pretty amazing. But man, that would have been a big game-changing play if they'd been able to connect.
If he can get regular reps and those two can get their timing down, that could definitely change the Argos offense for the positive.
I really liked him out there. And, Chandler Worthy as a receiver, not necessarily for every down, just like he was used today. He was used, on I don't know what the snap count was, but I would guess he was probably used on about a quarter of the snaps. But that's fine. To have that deep threat in there is excellent. I also really liked having him in there on punt returns because to me, it really changed the way that they were kicking the ball. We saw penalties for kicking the ball out of bounds. We saw them really change up because they, the first few were boomed. And after the first 2 punts, he'd brought both of them back for about 15 yards. And there was a real threat of him taking them further. And I know there was a punter injury and it, changed everything else after that. But strategically, it was messing with Hamilton because they didn't want to risk, especially in what became a close game, Chandler Worthy breaking one wide open because he has the speed to do it. And we've been asking for that. I know we've been asking for Trey Williams, but Chandler Worthy is a threat, and you could see it on the sideline. Every time there was a punt, everybody on the sideline on the Argos sideline is right up to the line because they want to see it because they've seen him in practice. They know what his speed is like, and they wanted to see him take one to the house, but just didn't happen today.
I have one just digression, if we could, for a moment. From a kicking point of view, I'm always defending kickers. I thought Hamilton, when they were midfield and it was 3rd and short, and they had their rookie place kicker punting because the punter was out, and they went for the punt instead of going for it. I just thought that was such a classic example of a coach underestimating the skill of his punter and figuring that, well, I'm sure this kid can also punt it down into the corner, and then of course the place kicker kicked it out of bounds because like directionally punting into the corner is really hard. So I thought that was a classic example of, a head coach just assuming that, the video guy or the DJ or the, special teams coach could just go out there and kick this punt as well. I thought that was great for Toronto, but a terrible decision by Hamilton.
I just thought in general there are some strange third down decisions. How about that third down near the end of the first half where it's 3rd and inches? There's 45 seconds left on the clock. The Argos are at their own 45. You only need like another 15 yards to attempt a Boris Beatty field goal at the end of the half. 3rd and inches, and they punted the ball away, and that almost turned into points for Hamilton coming the other way. It blew my mind that Toronto did not go for it on 3rd and inches, no matter where you are.
Where unless you're, like on your 30 and in, your own 30, like you if you're in the middle of the field, you have to go 3rd and inches. Like in the CFL, you can't stop 3rd and inches.
Well, although they did actually in the first quarter.
But
I know we lost like a yard on that play too.
It's almost impossible to stop it in the CFL. I agree. Mean, it makes no sense in Canadian football. I get it in American football, but in Canadian football, where they have to stay a yard off, that's free money. Like you have to be an absolute, red-black tire fire to not believe your crew can get a first down. I thought I agree with you. Every single time they don't go 3rd and inches is a mistake.
And I'll go further than you. I don't care where you are on the field. You can be on your own 1 yard line, although I guess you wouldn't be on 3rd and inches there. But you could be on your own 11 yard line, and I would go for it on 3rd and inches. I just think it's automatic.
Yeah, agreed.
Sacks were pretty good. Defensive line contributing some sacks. I didn't notice anything different schematically. Nothing stood out to me. It just looked to me like there were a couple that I would attribute to coverage, like I mentioned with the Josh Haggerty coverage on that Eli Harold sack. But I thought the defensive line did a great job of beating their guys and just getting to the quarterback. They played out of their minds today.
Yeah, I thought, Eli Harold, who we loved when they signed him, is turning into exactly who we thought he could be, just an absolute stud. I'd have to sit and watch it again. I mean, it feels sometimes that the Argos are way too much outside rush, not nearly enough inside rush, not nearly enough loops and twists. Because that outside stuff, they're just being directed past the quarterback over and over and over again. But Harold looked good, and my guy Oakman, who's been grinding in the trenches, is now starting to put up some stats, and he's getting that inside pressure, which is something they definitely need more of. To get those sacks. And I thought he had a fantastic game. In fact, I have come up with a nickname for him.
What is it?
I will now refer to him as the CN Power.
That's not bad.
Yeah, that's my man, CN Power.
The CN Power.
I mean, he's been building to it. He's been great all season inside, and now he's starting to put in some pass rush stuff into it. I think he's going to be an all-star by the end of the year.
They were moving him around quite a lot today. Like he was on the outside, he was in the inside. I thought that was kind of interesting. And that was, Charleston Hughes was a late scratch today. Right before the game, they decided he couldn't go. And so he was scratched. And I thought the line did a really nice job. I was getting a little nervous, pregame, about an hour before the game. Coach had every defensive lineman out there, and they were sort of, repping some things and like going over what looked like last minute game planning. I think just based on that, I would guess they thought Charleston was going to be able to go. But he didn't, and I thought the line stepped up really nicely, but they also adjusted to some of the movement that was put in. And there you had Feeney, who was making the start at end, and he had so many snaps. And, I wouldn't say he had as good a game as Harold or as Oakman, but he played well. And the whole line in general, I thought did just a really nice job of staying on that, the Hamilton quarterbacks.
Yeah, and shout out Feeney for his injury freezing the Hamilton kicker at the end of the game. His injury at the end of the game might be the TSN turning point.
It's true, because Hamilton comes out to kick that game-tying extra point, and Feeney's on the field for quite a long time. And I this isn't intentional, obviously. Feeney was banged up a lot of that game, and he was just trying to grind it out and just, take advantage of this opportunity that he's been given. But, he was really hurting. But you're right, though, that injury was well-timed in that, Hamilton's kicker is now standing out there for about 5 minutes thinking about this game-tying extra point. and of course it misses. So that was the difference. But yeah, I don't think it's something that you credit Feeney for. But had he not been tough enough to try and get back in there like 6 different times, he's not out there on the field. That doesn't happen, and everything changes. I guess butterfly effect, right? There were some horrible missed tackles in this game, and I don't like to criticize the defense for anything because they're clearly the best part of the Toronto Argonauts. And again today, they had an outstanding day. But man, there were a lot of missed tackles. What's going on out there? Like, what do you see when you're seeing all these missed tackles? Why are they missing so many?
Yeah, I mean, one of the issues that they've had since the beginning of the season is in the secondary, there are too many, whatever you want to call it, a bullseye, a body check style. But basically, you're just trying to light the guy up with your shoulder and you're not wrapping up. And I know that that's part of the Seahawk tackling, technique, that occasionally you have those Cam Chancellor bullseye shots. But I think the reality is that there's a time and place for them, and they can't be a consistent thing. You need, it's not to sound like the football coach, but you got to wrap up. That's why that's the technique. You just have to make sure that you're getting this play stopped and that you're not just trying to get some kind of highlight film play. And as much as many props as I gave Chris Edwards, and I still think he had a great sack and still a great player, but that third down at the end of the game where they're playing sticks and they catch the ball at 5 yards and he wraps up, the game's over, and instead he goes in for this bullseye tackle and it just doesn't work. Like, guys are looking for it, they're ready for it, and you basically just spin him off away from the other tacklers, and he converts the first down. And that's just unacceptable. It really is. You have got to make that tackle. So I think that there seems to be too much desire to highlight film, blow up dudes, when just a perfectly boring wrap up tackle is what's required.
Let's transition to looking at some stats here. And I want to tie in your last point to some of these stats. So after 3 quarters, Hamilton only had 2 rushing attempts for a total of 7 yards. But then in the fourth quarter, they put up about 60 yards rushing, a lot of that on Dane Evans with his 3 carries for 32 yards. And of those 32 yards, about 31 and a half of them came after contact. It felt like he was running like, Christian Okoye as a throwback name, where guys were just like bouncing off him. And it's Dane Evans. Like, I know he's a good runner and he's a good athlete, but he was bowling everybody over because nobody was wrapping up. They were going for that big hit on the quarterback. And it was in situations where it was, 2nd and 20 and he runs for 19 yards. It was just so frustrating to watch.
Yeah,
and
I don't mind the the bullseye tackle. I think like it works great on hooks where you're like, okay, if you're going to catch this hook, or a screen that I've read correctly, I'm going to make you regret it. But other than those 2 times, you have to wrap. You have to keep your head up and just make a textbook tackle. So it's just not a weapon to be used as a normal tackle. There's a time and place for it to punish guys. But, with the quarterback, you got to wrap up. You can't in free space try and light somebody up because he's a good athlete and he made guys miss.
And just situationally, be aware, 2nd and 20.
Right.
Just all you got to do is wrap them up.
Not to get a highlight.
Look at some of the other stats that stand out. This wasn't one of Nick Arbuckle's best games. So he ended up going 23 for 37 at 62% completion, 236 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. One of them wasn't his fault. One of them was a disaster.
Oh, God. I mean, if I have an issue with Arbuckle, I think that he seems like a good leader, and he's got a pretty good arm, and he seems pretty good at reading defenses. But there's a swagger to him It really reminds me of Aaron Rodgers, and he threw that off balance and tried to just kind of flick his wrist, and that's just not who he is. Like first of all, he doesn't have the history to back up that kind of casualness, and he doesn't have the arm strength to do it. And like, I know I used unacceptable, but that pass is absolutely unacceptable from
A
a
few
starting
things.
quarterback. He nearly cost his team the game for some kind of like, it looked like he was at practice and you just like having a laugh.
He was trying to throw the ball out of bounds. Like just talking to him after the game, he said he was, he was on his back foot, obviously, but he was trying to get the ball out of bounds. But even that's the wrong play. At that point, you take the sack because that keeps the clock running and you burn another 20 seconds off the clock. That's not a pass you want to even throw out of bounds. And then of course you couldn't even quite get it out of bounds. It gets picked off. And like you said, that was game altering. And if not for that missed extra point, that is, that's potentially the ball game. So yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways he is a rookie.
Right.
And so that's a pass that rookies make. And unfortunately, that is now the second time I've seen him do that terrible Aaron Rodgers body language pass that ended in interception. So, that better be it.
Other stats that stand out, John White had a fantastic game, 12 carries for 84 yards. He's averaging 7 yards and even 7 yards a carry on the night, which is fantastic. Receiving was interesting. It was really spread around. So the leading receiver in terms of receptions was Ricky Collins Jr. with 8 receptions on 9 targets, but he didn't really have the yardage there, 60 yards total on 8 receptions, which is 7.5 yards a reception, not great. Foster 3 receptions for 63, so he led the team in yardage. The good thing from it is that it was really spread around. Arbuckle connected with 9 different receivers, and so, or I guess 8 different receivers, because I don't think Dejan Brissett ended up with a catch. I just want to double check this here. No, Dejan Brissett had 6 targets and no catches. What happened with him today?
Arbuckle seemed intent on getting him killed.
There were a couple plays, that one where he got nearly bent in half
just
when Toronto was in their own
traffic
end.
And Juan Blanco, man, full credit to him. I had not been giving him enough respect. I thought his blitz pickups are fantastic, even for a guy who's not huge. I thought he ran hard. I thought he absolutely set the tone for the game, that the Argos were there to win that game. I thought his first quarter was the reason for the win. Full credit to him. I think he has earned his place as the primary running back. Brissett, he's got to catch that ball in the end zone. I do worry, both in that end zone catch and the catch he got cut in half, that he might be getting into that habit of jumping to catch the ball that you see young receivers sometimes get in the habit of jumping for balls that they don't need to jump for.
Yeah, receivers tend to do this. The rationale behind it in their minds, and it's not the correct play no matter what the rationale is, but the rationale is that they believe they're about to take contact and they feel like jumping will actually protect them. But in fact, it sort of does the opposite. And in the case where that pass where, not the end zone one, but where Brissett got cut in half, the defender wasn't actually that close to him. So he jumps for a ball he doesn't need to jump for. He actually does sort of secure it, and then he lands right as the hit is coming. So actually jumping made it way worse. And so he's a little bit at fault on that. The ball was a little high, but not the kind of ball that you need to jump for. And you definitely should not be jumping for that football in that scenario.
No, it looked like a rookie game. I think he is still a good player, and he gets in position to make catches. But he's a rookie, and this is professional football, so it's not. He has things to learn.
Let's go over offensive and defensive players of the game. Who was your offensive player of the game, JB?
Juan Blanco. I thought that he, like I say, I thought that he ran hard. I thought that he converted some huge first downs on those drives. I thought his blitz pickups were, courageous. I thought he was the heartbeat of the team. I thought he went out there and demanded toughness of the team and basically like stared down Hamilton's defensive line. For me, he was hands down the best player in the first half, and the first half is where they won the game.
For me, I'm going to go with Peter Nicastro. Linemen never get any love. Linemen never get offensive player of the game. They never get talked about. They're not on the billboards. He played a really good game today, and he may change the direction of the team based on his play today. Because like I said, maybe that means Philip Blake can get back to guard. I thought, given all the pressure that was on him, he didn't play that well. Last week he's been sort of spotty on and off throughout the season so far. He delivered a really nice game today, and for all that was put on him, I thought that deserved Offensive Player of the Game.
And speaking of rookies, the fact that he's able to do that means that they have got themselves a great pick.
Yeah. Let's move on to Defensive Player of the Game. There were a couple directions we could go here, I guess. Where did you go for Defensive Player of the Game?
CN Power.
Yeah.
I thought Oakman that the Argos don't get a lot of inside pressure, which I think has been a bit of a flaw of their defensive line. Because if you only come from the outside over and over again, it's relatively easy to scheme for that. I think he's great. I think he's going to be an all-star. I think he's been everything they could have hoped for when they signed him. I thought he dominated today. And I think he's only going to become more confident and more of a weapon. And if they move him outside a little too, I think it's really exciting. I thought he played a hell of a game.
For defensive player, I'm going to go with Enoch Mwamba, who again had I guess it wasn't that quiet a game. He did bring in that interception on that
gorgeous,
that really nice
gorgeous drop.
Oh, it was beautiful. They were running this sort of Tampa 2 on that play.
And that's not really his thing, which is probably what caught them by surprise.
Yeah, I don't think Dan Evans even dreamed that Enoch Mwamba would be waiting back there. But yeah, they sort of rolled into a 2. Enoch dropped, and he was just waiting right there for the ball. But the reason that I thought his play was outstanding today, and of course it didn't come anywhere near to what he had last week in terms of tackles, but he was given so much ground to cover in the passing game early on. They did so much deep cover 3. They were just dropping everyone way back there, not letting anything over the top. They wanted Hamilton to have to put drives together, but that left the linebackers with a ton of ground to cover in the middle. And he did a really nice job in that first half, just roaming all over the place.
Crushed Akers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, full credit. He held on to the ball, but oh my God.
Somehow. Yeah, that was an amazing hit. But yeah,
and you know what? I thought Cam Judge had his best game.
He missed an interception. That was the only thing I was upset on with Judge. It just went right through his hands.
Such perfect technique. Like I love the scheme of it. They drop the DB and he comes out from backer and basically suckered them into that throw. And his positioning was perfect, and that's why guys end up on the defensive side of the ball.
Let's go to best play and worst play. Which one do you want to start with here? I don't know.
Well,
usually
let's go
start with best play.
I mean, we did win. A win's a win, as I said, and I will not knock a win against Hamilton.
So let's start then with best play. What do you have for best play?
I thought the DJ Foster touchdown. We've seen that before, but again, his finish, his drive, the crowd fed off it. The team fed off it, that sort of determination that I'm getting in the end zone.
I don't think there was any other candidate for best play.
I thought that was a huge play for the team.
Yeah, it's the only choice for best play, and I'm going to go with the same one. There weren't that many other options. Like the other ones would have been penalties.
They almost did nothing in the second half.
Yeah, 3 points in the second half. They couldn't move the ball. But that was that Foster touchdown reception, I guess, was fantastic. Now there were a lot of candidates for worst play. JB, where did you go with this one?
For a game we won.
It's a good thing we won because a loss after a performance like that, if Hamilton had somehow found a way to win that at the end, that just would have been soul crushing. And we would have just spent the next week
Well,
not wanting to.
I think the worst play again is the obvious one, which is the Arbuckle interception. I, like, I'm sure everybody on the sideline was blown away at how casual and how terrible it was, considering how much work had gone into holding on to this lead. And basically, all we need to do now is kind of finish this thing off. It was really just terrible in every way. Terrible technique, terrible mentally, terrible emotionally, spiritually, in every way, on every level of existence.
For worst play, this didn't impact the game at all, but it just to me was an inexcusable moment. For me, I'm going to go with that quarterback sneak that lost a yard. I have never seen that in my life in Canadian football. I've seen some weird things on quarterback sneaks. I've seen a quarterback run helmet first into a goalpost. I've seen it all, but I've never seen a quarterback lose a yard where there wasn't like a fumble or anything like that on a quarterback sneak. That got me so angry. And then suddenly we're facing a 3rd and 2, which they were able to convert on a quarterback sneak. But then that made me even that much more frustrated when they didn't go for it on 3rd and inches near the end of the half. But I think it was that quarterback sneak. That was why. Because I think Coach Dinwiddie was reflecting back to when they lost a yard on a quarterback
But that was
sneak.
it was such a poorly run sneak. I mean, you're not a running back. What are you doing?
Well, he likes to go around the outside because he's looking for a big play, and there are a lot of the CFL quarterbacks, especially second string quarterbacks, who are runners that come in to make those quarterback sneak plays. You see that quite a lot across the league where they bring in the other guy to sneak the ball.
It reminded me of the bad old days, but in truth, that wasn't the worst idea the Argos ever had, having a QB sneak guy.
No, I actually, I do like that. And I like how, BC uses that. And, there's actually, I would say half the teams in the league have the second quarterback who happens to be a better runner than the first guy just come in to, not only because they're a better runner, but then it avoids you having your starting quarterback take another hit. But yeah, Arbuckle looking to take the edge on these quarterback sneaks. I think sometimes you just got to, go forward, follow Nicastro and Bladek, find your yard, and then live to play another play. But yeah, that was my worst play. All right, areas to improve, JB. 3 stood out to me. Execution, and I think that's going to come with more practice time. This is going to be a normal week this week. There's an off day tomorrow. They're also getting an off day on Sunday, I believe, and then they're back to practice, Monday through Thursday, and then flying it to Regina. But execution has to improve this week. Tackling has to improve, and contested catches would be the third thing that has to improve.
Yeah, I mean, mine are similar. I wouldn't overreact. I thought, for the most part, the Argos played a very good game, and if Brissett catches that ball and then they don't toss it away at the end, it's probably 30-17 or 30-13. Yeah, I think that they definitely need to work on contested catches. I think that's when you're playing good teams, you're going to have contested catches. So you need to get that percentage up, especially for the younger guys. I'd like to see them work on throwing the ball to the left-hand side of the field, because it still seems to be an issue in terms of accuracy and arm strength. So I'd like to see a few more plays to the left side. And I'd like to see, I know we disagree, but, free Trey Williams.
I'm fine with that too. It's not like I disagree with that.
I want to see what he can do. And I don't think that sacrificing one position for one game to give him a look is the end of the world. But, easy for me to say sitting here.
I don't disagree with that. I quite liked having Chandler Worthy out there on offense. And so if you're going to have him out there,
that's obviously why he's over, starting over top is, he's a better receiver.
Well, that will just about do it for us on this episode of the X's and Argos podcast. For JB, my name is Ben Grant saying so long, and may all your pre-snap reads be good ones. I'll see you.